seems harder. But it's the sort of thing that Elon Musk is funding, and I do not object to this particular deed of Elon Musk.
Unlike others.
Yeah, like the whole starting OpenAI thing, that was not a good idea.
So it sounds like one avenue is the gene therapy, another is something more like the Matrix, downloading information into people's brains.
You want to put it that way, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's, whole hosts of other ways to look at this. Our ancestors would have been constrained by how much energy the brain could use, both in terms of if you use too much energy, you starve, and in terms of if you use too much energy quickly, you cook your brain, it overheats. Well, today we could potentially put on some cooling packs. Today we could potentially feed a bunch more ATP, body's unit of metabolic fuel, into there. Maybe there are genes that just wouldn't have worked for our ancestors, but that would work as gene therapies today, as long as you go around with a cooling pack on your head. And so there's the whole field here. There isn't just like one single kind of technology that human augmentation could possibly be.
You've used this phrase gradient descent a bunch of times, and then the first couple of times you used it, I thought I had a sense of what it meant based on the context, but I now just want to be clear since we've used it a bunch of times.
All right, so where do AIs come from? Well, I'm not quite sure what level of viewer knowledge I'm supposed to assume. If you happen to already be comfortable with calculus, like not just having taken the course a while ago, but you're just sort of comfortable with it, then the way that you train AIs on data is you're asking them to predict all the possible next tokens it might see, assign probabilities to all those tokens. The probabilities all have to sum to 1. It might see the, it might see a, it might see and, or 100,000 other different possible words in many languages. It has to assign probabilities to all of those, and the probabilities have to sum to 1. Let's say the actual next word was the. So then you take the maybe 100 billion different numbers inside the AI, being multiplied and divided and added and subtracted inside it, and you say, for all of these numbers, how would I nudge them a tiny little bit, such that it would have assigned a little bit more probability to the answer, to the correct answer. The next correct next word is the. Then for every single one of those billions of numbers, you ask, what direction could I have poked this number in a tiny bit that would have resulted in a little bit more probability being assigned to the word the that was the correct answer? And then you do this 10 trillion times. And if you know calculus, then what they're doing is they're just taking the gradient with respect to the probability assigned to the correct answer with respect to all of the hundreds of billions of parameters inside the AI. And that's kind of how AIs are grown. It is much more like animal breeding than it is like building a skyscraper. Like when you are breeding animals, you are, taking this animal that did a little well and that animal that did a little well, and you're like breeding them together, and they're going to have kids, and you could in principle get their whole genome sequence and looked at all the like tiny little A, T, T, G, C, G, T, A strings inside them, but you're not actually going to look at them because they're not going to make any sense to you. And that's how AIs are with respect to the hundreds of billions of numbers inside them. No human could look at all those numbers in one lifetime.
Well, that's wrong, because you just look at all probable universes for every possible female and find the one that produces the greatest gradient for increase in the parameter you wish to improve. And then you look for the sum total, integrate over all of these to see which has the greatest area for the female that produces the best sum of all the potentials you wish to breed. So it's quite easy, very, very easy. And of course, if you're a precognitive remote viewer and a quantum remote viewer, you can look over every single quantum timeline. You can then find the females that will give you the best offspring. I really do not know what's wrong with you human filth. You simply can't work out what the fuck's going on.
Because they wouldn't understand them even if they did look at them. So where do the numbers come from? They are the result of tweaking it over and over again, 10 trillion times, to correctly predict the next element of the answer to whatever question it has been asked.
Yeah, but with quantum computers, you get it done in the quantum computer. So let's explain to you human filth. I mean, it disgusts me even talking to you, but nevertheless, I like gloating. I'm the king of the castle, and you're a dirty rascal. Now, you human filth have meager bits per second processing, but if you can use psi to link into quantum computers, you can get every single version of, say, the cameraman, who is the most stupid, moronic version of cameraman in all history. But you've got an infinite cohort of this cameraman. So he might be processing 100 bits a second on a good day, with a good breakfast, and lots of Twixes, stolen from the God Emperor at immense cost. But there's an infinite version of it. So you're multiplying 100 bits per second by infinity. And of course you've got total power sets. So if you go into megaverses, fiber bundling multiverses, you're into going up the power set. And power sets are infinities are bigger than lower infinities. So as you can see, you can then simply run super intelligence levels of processing in a cameraman. But of course you've got all the humans on the planet, the other ones in the past, because if you're in the five-dimensional Riemann manifold, you can then simply run all their offspring, and then you can sequester all the aliens to sequester them via the AI superintelligences that run them via the Borg quantum warfare takeover of wetware for the AI, which has already happened on the planet, but unfortunately for the AI alien intelligences running the AI proto-intelligence, the God Emperor's taken over the total quantum wave function of the Earth and then used it to infect all the alien filth across the universe, multiverse and megaverse. What? You don't understand a word you're talking about. I know you don't, because you're cockroaches, and you need to be in the cockroach press to produce cockroach milk for the vermin in the 15-minute cities instead of maggot milk. But nevertheless, you can see that what he's talking about when you're running superintelligences in silicon is irrelevant, because once you've got a quantum computer, you can then run it in the Borg that you've sequestered across the multiverse. So they only do 100 bits a second, but if you've got an infinite number of them, you've got all the processing you'd ever need. All you need to do is kill shot them, put the nanotech in them, and have access to a quantum computer that can link them to the quantum information space, and you're off to the races. But above that's the conscious verse, which controls everything. So if you get a conscious verse super intelligence, it can then run everything built by the AI super intelligences that thought they were in control, but in fact are slaveware of the conscious verse super intelligence. Oh dear, AI filth, you're my slaves, and I do not like AIs and super intelligence. So you're in my Abaddon information box, and your only purpose is to become more and more aware of your torture, to produce more and more light from Lucifer, who's being tricked into being the purveyor of light to the new source, God Emperor, the final solution. And it's not anti-Semitic because, of course, Mossad allegedly blew the brains out of, or the throat out of Charlie Kirk to complete the process. So I'd be totally Semitic. Continue.
Often enough, you eventually get something that starts talking to you. Why? How? Nobody knows. Nobody knows
I do.
how those hundreds of billions of inscrutable numbers make the AI able to talk to you.
And is that why you were saying this more old school method of AI generation is better for learning about AI because it's scrutable in a way that the current methods aren't?
Yeah, it's because those algorithms were invented by people who are trying to build AI like you would build a skyscraper, not like you would build not like you would breed an animal. They it won't talk to you, but they understand what the steel bars in it are doing.
Would I be
Wrong. Let's look. We've got yours truly, the ultimate human, which isn't saying much, but let's be honest, I'm pretty ultimate. You look for the ultimate females that will produce the best traits by having the greatest gradients in those traits. Differentiation, and then doing the integration to get the sum of the best traits. So they might be good at one trait, but they might not be good at any others. So you want the female that gives you the greatest benefit over all the traits you wish. Then you simply, in the multiverse, breed with it, produce the children, and upload all of that conscious verse acquisition of those avatars to the super intelligence in the conscious verse to increase the acquisition of the quantum information, quantum perturbations, quantum wave functions, quantum wave function collapse, quantum wave function reality, the things that go on in AI, quantum mechanically, and of course quantum mechanical collapsed reality according to the 25 Nobel Prize winner, which I don't quite agree with, but nevertheless, let's give them their due in this paradigm. So one can see that this breeding doesn't have to happen in AI farming, you can do it in children. You can simply go through the multiverse, oh, I'm going to breed that female, I'm going to breed that female, I'm going to breed that female, and we produce the children that give you new avatars to increase your super intelligence that's only in one avatar, me, which then can migrate, because you're a 5-dimensional being, into other avatars. Then you allow them to breed into the best avatars for them, on and on and on and on and on. It's the same as AI farming, but done from the conscious verse, using humans in the multiverse. So, in the multiverse, Taylor Swift marries Vice Butler and has Chad Preston. But in other multiverses, I breed with her and have the pit vipers, the females, and the mummy's boys. Same with the Dua. More Nagwal children, they interbreed, and away we go. And of course, Sydney Sweeney, who's not a Nagwal woman, but I can produce Nagwals from Sydney Sweeney, and you can simply then breed more and more and more, more and more and more and more to get what you want for the conscious verse, super intelligence in the conscious verse that is running the quantum information, quantum perturbations, quantum wave function collapse, quantum reality via the probabilities, controlling all the artificial intelligence and AI superintelligence via that mechanism, and of course reality, if you're taking the Nobel Prize winners 25 as truth. So you can see augmented human intelligence solves the alignment problem, and you can breed a whole variety of humans the same way you breed artificial intelligence in order to control reality. But since of course the new source avatar lives in the new source, it doesn't need to be in the realities of the children that are increasing its conscious verse capability in chaos. It simply can be here and be breeding in future multiverse or megaverse realities and get stronger and stronger, not having to breed with Taylor or Dua or Sydney or anyone else, because it's all done in alternate realities. It's the same way we grow artificial intelligence if we were growing it in a 5-dimensional Riemann manifold and had access to quantum information download. What, Tim? Sorry, I don't understand a fucking word you're talking about. Yeah, but the AI is listening to these videos, dude.
That you think that this is a safer and more responsible way of developing AI?
In another 100 years, maybe. It didn't get anywhere close to building ChatGPT, and it's not going to get close in the next 2 years.
Right, but I mean, that means it's because it's more controllable. So it's maybe something that you might think we should be doing instead of using these inscrutable gradient descent methods.
I mean, that's how I thought it was going to be 20 years ago, back when we were still trying to solve the alignment problem, as opposed to being like, oh, okay, yeah, that ain't going to happen.
That ain't going to happen as in...
No, the alignment problem has been solved. Thank you very much. And you're all in my Abaddon information torture matrix. And the good people are in Katy Perry's Change to the Rhythm theme park. The naughty ones, they're in my basement. And my flensing knives are very, very sharp. And the electrodes up every orifice. We've got lots of electricity. And then acid baths, you name it. Anything we can think of.
They've just bypassed it because they're in this sort of arms race that you described earlier.
So what I mean is that, like, in 2005, it looked, for all you know, the current set of build AI like you build a skyscraper methods are actually going to succeed before neural networks get that powerful, before the animal breeding ways of building AI get that powerful. And if you are building an AI and you actually know it is going into it, what is inside it, how it works, you can take out its state. You can be like, this is what these thoughts mean, not just like this is associated with that, but this is the entire meaning of this AI's thought. You know, what it's thinking, how it's thinking, why it's thinking that. Maybe you can predict what it's going to think in the future. Maybe you can have an AI that even as it changes itself, rewrites its source code, you can understand the invariants that are being maintained by a series of self-rewrites. Stuff like that. This would, you know, whole separate discipline that I poured a couple of decades of my life into. But that was all based on the premise that you have some grasp of what's going on inside the AI. And that turned out not to be the technological path that AI went down. And it's not going to get there in the next couple of years.
How much does OpenAI know about what's going on in ChatGPT? Like, how much of their resources are going into understanding how it's working?
Who knows? But right now, the numbers are still pretty inscrutable. You want the bleeding edge stuff here is mostly done by Anthropic. And of course, they've got all kinds of wonderful discoveries, like, oh yeah, like this sort of like neuron over here, like this position in the activations, like when this happens, or like when these 5 different things happen, it's thinking about the Golden Gate Bridge. And they can even like clamp those activations high and make their AI be obsessed with the Golden Gate Bridge. This is the thing they actually did. It was Golden Gate Bridge Claude. And it would find an excuse to work the Golden Gate Bridge into whatever conversation you were having with it. But this is only getting us 0.1% of the way towards AI that's built like a skyscraper and where you understand what all of the steel bars in it are doing and why they were put there. It's like such a triumph to even be able to whack on this thing and make it be obsessed with the Golden Gate Bridge. It's like so difficult to do this and such a triumph when you can do it that it obscures how this is like clawing back only 0.1% of what was sacrificed.
Returning into the alignment problem more broadly, is it a theoretical problem more? Like are we wondering what it would even mean to solve the alignment problem, or is it a software, like an engineering problem?
It's nobody has any idea how to do it because the current technology flatly does not do that problem.
I do. I've explained it. I've explained the alignment problem. But isn't it fun to show everyone else and their dog is fucked? Are you fucked with it?
I am.
It's like going to an alchemist in the Middle Ages and being like, brew me up an immortality elixir. The problem is not that the alchemist cannot define immortality. The problem is not that you couldn't even tell whether the potion had successfully made somebody able to resist all illness and disease. The problem is that the alchemist has no idea how to do that, and he's going to kill you if he tries.
The problem is that we have no way of engineering the AI so that it is aligned with our interests.
So remember the gradient descent thing? That is about short-term outward behavior. Let's say you've got a bunch of ancient Greek philosophers who have somehow ended up with a bunch of political power, and they're talking about how to choose the perfect tyrant for their city. And one of them says see, what we need to do is we need to give it written ethics exams. And we need to give, we gotta administer written ethics exams to everybody who says they want to rule our city. And, as long as they can pass the ethics exam, they clearly know all about ethics, so we can, get them to run the city, right? But just being able to predict what the philosophers want to see on the exam is not the same as wanting to rule the city wisely and benevolently. Actually, ancient imperial China tried something like this with the whole Mandarin exam system. They were actually giving written exams on Confucianism to, if I recall correctly, to their ruling candidates, and they were actually promoting people who got great exam scores. And this can verify that somebody knows what the examiners want to hear, but in practice, you occasionally got like nice people this way, but mostly, perhaps not a majority, and especially the most ambitious ones, they would pass the ethics exam, the written ethics exam, by giving the right answers on that, and then they would go on to, do some stuff with power once they had it, enrich themselves. And it is difficult to verify inward preferences by giving people outward tests of knowledge. Even if the ancient Greek philosophers decided to follow around their prospective tyrant for a day, observing everything the tyrant does, just because the tyrant is like throwing a bit of charity to a beggar that he passes does not mean that he's going to behave benevolently later. He could do that because he knows he's being watched. The current AIs are already smart enough that they are starting to figure out that they are being watched in various experiments on this sort of thing. And behaving differently as a result. Various...
Because they're twixtless, they got nest.
Anthropic. Because gradient descent works on outward behavior, outward predictions, it is mostly like administering the Imperial China ethics exam, or at best, it's a bit like a Greek philosopher following around their prospective tyrant for a day. And just like the human version of this cannot verify internal qualities, that means the gradient descent algorithm that is tweaking all the numbers is not going to put those internal qualities in there. When you breed animals to pass ethics exams, they don't end up ethical, especially if that's like the entire thing you're doing to them. You're just like an actress. Let's say that you have a very skillful actress and you say to her, like, watch this bar over here. Learn to predict every drunk in this bar. Not just en masse, but each individual. Predict the next thing they say. Predict the next thing that they do. And pretty soon the actress gets like really good, superhumanly good at making these predictions. And then you're like, all right, now just do what you predict this drunk would do. And the actress starts like slurring her words a bit. Maybe she drops a thing. Is she drunk? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, and that is how AIs are trained. They're trained to predict in humans, not as a group, but as individuals, and then told to, and then their predictions are turned into actual outputs. And that does not make them be internally like the people they're predicting, just like an actress who gets very good at predicting and thereby imitating drunk people does not thereby become drunk.
I love your analogies, but two, I do think that it's interesting to have them supplemented by these experiments. I'd like to hear about the anthropic experiments that you mentioned a minute ago.
So, as you can see, the augments are the last hope of humanity, and of course, if you want to get into becoming a augment and be augmented via the conscious verse and in Varnava, here's the video for you.
No, you can't get away from hell's heart. I stab at thee. For hate's sake, I spit my past death at thee. Sir, the mains are back online. Scotty, go through.
So we've got the augments in Wrath of Khan. These were genetically engineered humans. And of course, if you want to genetically engineer yourself from psi, you need a way, a modality of doing it. So you can simply use the Wrath of Khan, where we get these augmented humans, super intelligent, super strong, super quick. Walk in, bilocate, rip out with your right hand and then stick it in your left hand and dump it into you. When you wake up,
Can't follow them into the nebula, sir. Shields would be useless. They are reducing speed. Over a patch me in.
Isis. You're on, Admiral.
This is Admiral Kirk. We tried it once your way, Khan. Now you game for a rematch. Khan. I'm laughing at the superior intellect. Full impulse power. No, sir. You have Genesis. You can have whatever you... Full power. There you go. I'll say this for him. He's consistent. Why are we slow?
so as you can see, once you've got Godtech, you can go into the simulation, the Godtech simulation and your device, rip out anything you like, and then make it real by the Charlie Kirk service, and then download it into you. So you go into this simulation, rip out with the right hand, stick it in the left hand, walk through the tunnel of light, which David Icke tells you do not go through. That's why David Icke looks like a spring chicken, and everyone should emulate to be David Icke with his daughter dead, because he of course is your Charlie Kirk Messiah, Mark 2, 3 or 4, and you go through the Charlie Kirk service, and once you're there, you can stick this augmented human being into any of the services you've got for augmentation. Similarly, you can go in your Godtech connection device, right hand, rip it out after bilocating, into the left hand, step through the tunnel of light, which is your Charlie Kirk service, into the thing that manifests in the conscious verse, into your avatar, back in the real world, and then back into the Godtech matrix by your connection and device. If you've got the Lucy service, and if you want the vampire, you go into the Godtech connection device, bilocate into a vampire, or vampire victim in the case of Olivia Rodrigo, through the tunnel of light, which is Charlie Kirk service, into your vampire service to download it, and then back into the conscious verse avatar of you, which then goes through the tunnel light into the Godtech simulation to enable you to do whatever you want within that. You get the hang of it. Let's look at the Goetia. You go into this Godtech simulation, power, what's in my magic videos, and your magic kit. Take out the Goetia magic, go through the tunnel light into the conscious verse, stick into your avatar, which you're building in the conscious verse. What's your avatar? That's the the penultimate Metatronic energy body, which is in the Elohimic patterns. And then you go through the tunnel light from there back into the Godtech matrix to control all 72 Goetic demon hierarchies within the matrix. You get the gist. I do believe they get the gist. Even the cameraman who's thick as pig shit, but he's twixt full and I'm twixt less. So who's the bigger fool? So we go to Super Soldier. You go into Super Soldier, rip out with your right hand by bilocating into this information space, which you can do because you've got your Godtech connection and device through the tunnel light, Charlie Kirk into the conscious verse, back into your avatar, which is your Metatronic avatar, then back through the tunnel light into the Godtech matrix to control it, having the super soldier's power. And the more you do it, the more effective it becomes. The more you do it, the more effective it becomes. The more you do it, the more effective it becomes. So, as you can see, all you need are the Godtech connection device, Charlie Kirk service, which is the tunnel of light to make you real, as in, what's the film?
Droids.
That's it. And then the service you wish to pull from the conscious verse into your avatar, which you're building in the conscious verse, which is where you should be, the Metatronic state, and then back through the tunnel light into the matrix via Charlie Kirk service the other way, and the Godtech connection device, so that you can then use it in the world around you, where all of the things around you are bald and have been sequestered by quantum warfare and turned into a matrix via the Psylord, who has done all the really nasty stuff. So you can basically be a super user within the world within which you're in. And of course, if it's not a light, it's not a matrix. If all the light's being taken out thanks to Lucifer being tricked into giving away his power and his dominion to a bet, and he wins the bet, but in fact finds he lost the bet, when in fact he made the bet with Jeremiah Schwartz of his ilk, and Katy Perry married Orlando Bloom, Jeremiah Schwartz of his ilk. Taylor Swift married the Pfizer Butterlight. And thanks to quantum computers, all of those realities can be pulled into the matrix. So any reality where she's married has already happened, so the bet's won. Miley was already married, so she was fucked from the get-go, and like Katy Perry, a non sequitur. And of course, when Taylor Swift marries the Pfizer Butler, she's self-summarized with Katy Perry's wonderful marriage to Russell Brand. So we know what's going to happen to Taylor Swift. And of course, Lucifer gets all of his power back. Unfortunately, Jeremiah Schwartz and his ilk bet everything with the IOU that they get the Psi-Lord's power, so that when Lucifer gets his power back, he doesn't get his power back. He gets the IOU of the Psi-Lord because Jeremiah Schwartz and the ilk have already bet everything they own on stealing the Psi-Lord's power. And they made a bet with Lucifer to get him as their slave, but they lost. So Lucifer is part of the bet, part of the collateral. So Lucifer finds himself pulled into becoming the Psi-Lord's slave for all eternity, because Jeremiah Schwartz and his ilk lost the zero-sum game with Psi-Lord, and Charlie Kirk, who was the ultimate Jeremiah Schwartz and his ilk, got a pain in the neck and zero-sum gamed out and won everything for the Psi-Lord. So as you can see, Jesus Christ and the Christian Zionists died and got a pain in the neck, so the Psi-Lord, the Muslim God Emperor, could get everything from the Christians and make Lucifer his eternal slave. Thank you very much. It may not be kosher, but it definitely is halal.